Green, as they say, is the new luxury. Welcome to Sustainable Stay, Advancing Hospitality Through Energy Efficiency, our podcast series brought to you by Hotelier India and supported by Grundfos. I'm Vinodini Rao, editor Hotelier India, and I'll be your host today. Joining me are two experts on the subject. Reema Diwan, Vice President Design and Technical Services for India and South Asia at Accor. Reema is here to share insights on designing spaces that feel as good for the planet as they do for the guests. Welcome, Reema.
Thank you.
And from Grundfos, we have Louis Brown, Head of Hospitality Development. Louis has been on a mission to make pumps and water systems as energy efficient as possible. Great to have you with us, Louis.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Let's start with the basics. The first question is for you, Reema. Accor is known for implementing eco-friendly design in your properties across South Asia. I imagine it must be quite the balancing act. You're trying to create a space that's luxurious yet eco-conscious. Can you share with us some key principles that guide your team's sustainable design decisions?
So there are basically fundamental principles which guide us through, and Accor has been very strong in promising zero carbon footprint and low carbon footprint. So when we put something together in terms of luxury, in terms of guest experience, our focus is to create something which is more sustainable, because that is the fundamental thing in today's world, and we all have to be aware. We all have to do the right thing, and just to do that, like, the basics has to be done right. So first, basically, principle which we filter while doing the designs, while putting things together, even for luxury, mid-scale, or any other brand, we first think about efficient planning, because once when you don't have the right foundation in place, you can't really build the right end result. Right, it can't be a sustainable hotel. So first thing for us is basically very important, which is efficient planning, and how we plan, structure the things, do the space planning to make it more efficient, and to make it work better in terms of operations also, and deliver the right guest experience. Second important thing which we stand for is efficient operations, because if you have efficient planning, you need to have very very effective operations, right? So what you plan has to be also delivered and executed in the right manner, keeping sustainability at the core. And definitely we focus on that how we can actually deliver that sustainable experience to the guest by eliminating plastics from the hotel, by having the hydration station in our hotels rather than even struggling for bottling plants and all of it, and managing our water and energy output and input, and how we can be more sustainable with that. And there are some materials also which are executed, and they are well placed, so that when you operate, you have a sustainable operations as well, and it's more effective. And then last but not the least, I think very important is empowering your society, empowering people where you're building hotels, and focusing on them, and how we can actually inculcate those things as part of our design. That is also something which is very important. Suppose if you're doing the styling and you're picking the materials, so we rely more on empowering the local society, empowering local women, actually, maybe women's who are living in the village, how they can actually support us in terms of our design, in terms of our operations, and how we can collaborate with them, and then empower the society. So these three actually principles are very important. It's an important filter. So we stand for three E's in a nutshell: effective planning, efficiency in operations, and empowering the local society.
Fantastic. That's great. Can you just go back a little and tell us, like, since when this movement, the three E's movement started in decor?
Almost post COVID, I think sustainability has taken really a big shape. And that time, actually, after COVID, we were just trying to learn that how we implement, what are the right ways of implementing, when the entire world actually, after COVID, started talking about sustainability. Of course, the topic was more there before that as well. And sustainability was very limited actually to just water and energy. Now actually it's evolving, and it's more evolved. Now there are artificial intelligence, and there are a lot of dashboards and a lot of things, and which are basically helping us to track and do more things and be more innovative with sustainability.
getting my attention to Lewis. Lewis, let's talk water. We've heard that water efficient systems can be a bit like the unsung heroes of sustainability, quietly saving gallons behind the scenes while everybody's enjoying their steamy showers. What are some of the latest innovations, Grundfos has brought to hotels to help them manage water and energy more efficiently?
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for asking. So I would say in Grundfos, there are
Yes.
two areas of focus that we're looking at when it's coming to bringing value and driving sustainability in hotels. And it is very distinctively in both energy and on the water side. So tangibly speaking, on the energy side is, of course, by making sure that the solutions that we are designing and installing at hotels are as efficiently as possible, both from a hydraulic point of view, so making sure that the motors are of the latest efficiency classes, but also the control logic. So oftentimes what we can see in hotels specifically is that the control side is very variable, right? Depending on guest demands, depending on the nature of the business, whether it's either a leisure hotel or business hotel, and then also very often tied into guest behaviors, right? In certain regions that will vary quite greatly. So I would say designing the right systems for the right building is very important. And then on the water side, so for water, again, we're looking at a number of areas here. That's water collection. So in certain markets where there's high water rainfall, we are working with newer solutions where we're actually doing rainwater harvesting, collecting that water and repurposing that water for areas such as makeup or irrigation. That's on the water collection side. Water reuse is another area where water reduction can be achieved by making sure that the water that we are disposing that it's correctly treated and can be recircled back into the system. So there really are a vast number of areas that Grundfos is working together with major hotels to help them reduce both on their energy and water saving targets.
That's really interesting, Louis. My next question, Reema, is for you. Sustainability often means rethinking the materials used in construction and decor. Tell us if you have ever faced any memorable challenges when trying to use sustainable materials in a way that keeps the design luxurious and yet appealing.
Yeah, I mean, implementing energy efficient practices and, selecting the materials and then still making it look really chic and, luxurious or maybe palatable for the kind of hotel you are creating. Sometimes it's definitely is challenging because, when you talk about sustainability, you also talk about relying more on the local resources. And sometimes, you don't have like a lot of resources available and through which you can filter your designs. And one of the challenge is that, mostly we work with international designers, we work with the designers, and they are not usually aware about the local offerings, the local materials, and how those can be incorporated as part of the design. So that is definitely a challenge which, we face. But the beauty is that, we know how to navigate that thing and how we can actually be more diversified in terms of our selection of materials and how we basically join the things together to create a more memorable experience and not go too much basically by a global perspective that the fabric has to come from maybe Bangkok, carpet has to come from there, and we have sufficient I think factories in India, and we have sufficient system and processes. India is no less, and I definitely encourage, in fact, our hotel owners and our designers to rely more on Indian resources and make good in India, and execute the materials which are available and how we can actually recreate them suiting the narrative of our hotel. That is actually a beauty, and that's actually a very very creative thing, and that's need a creative composition. I'll give you a small example. We had a designer from Bangkok, and we wanted to create something which is more relevant and can resonate with India. So we actually struggling with the design, and then we took a decision. We said, okay, let's call the designer here. Let's just do a 5 days workshop. Let him just go through the entire thing, understand people's behavior, what people eat, what they like. I mean, to that level, and then establish your design narrative suiting the location and resonating with the location and relying more on the local resources availability and how it can be executed as part of the beautiful design journey. So there are challenges, but how we can soften those challenges and make it more beneficial for the project is the key. And I think you can really strike a balance and do that easily.
Superb. How do you get what percentage of international designers you have coming in, when you're looking at a property, say in Asia or India specific?
See, it depends. I mean, if the scale of the project is big, then we have more international designers, recommended for the
Okay.
project. But we do rely a lot now on local designers because I think domestic designers are equally good. We rely basically on them as well. It basically depends upon the project to project. It depends upon the demography. It depends upon the kind of positioning you want to create in the market and what is basically there as part of the concept. How you want to create a product which distinct and which is has its own identity. So there are a lot of factors actually which you consider before placing the right people in place. And we prefer actually domestic as well as international. So really it's very hard to just have a percentage to it, like 50 or 40, whatever. Like it's basically based on
Hmm.
the owners and the project and the positioning. All the factors drive this decision.
Okay, great. My next question is for Louis. Louis, I have to ask, energy efficient pumps aren't exactly a headline grabber, but they are clearly doing a lot of heavy lifting. How do you pitch the value of, these behind the scenes heroes to hotels that might be more focused on front of house design?
That's very true. So I think what we have found
Yes.
across all of the hotels that we've looked at, and of course over the last 5, 10 years, we're talking about several of thousands of hotels by now, is that we typically find that on average, the total energy consumption consumed throughout the building, roughly 20 to 25% of the energy is actually going into the pumps. So whilst it's a back of house system, it is a system that is actually consuming a large portion of the total energy consumption. So, one, it's about creating that awareness around where the energy is actually going through benchmarking and through audits. That's really helping the hotels get visibility into where their current energy consumption is being consumed. That's one area. Then the second part is whilst pumps are at the back of the house, they are essential to the overall guest experience. And it's a very tangible part of the entire, let's say, stay of a guest, right? So when they're staying in a hotel and they're taking a shower, they'll instantly recognize whether there's a high, low water pressure. So again, when we're looking at optimizing systems, very often actually the pumps play a pivotal role in the overall guest experience. So water pressure is one key area. The next area is, of course, also water temperature. So inconsistent water pressure is a challenge, but also if this shower is, let's say, having hot or cold swings, is another key area that a guest has high expectations, and that a hotel like one of the top 4 or 5 star will want to deliver upon. So I would say creating awareness around where the energy consumption is going, and then also correlating that back to how that actually translates to the guest experience when they're in the property.
I was still asking Louis, is it being a little better post COVID because sustainability and being eco-friendly and all of these are big buzzwords right now. So has that really helped?
I would say so. I think whilst very little positive came out of the pandemic, of course, for hotels or globally speaking, one of the things that we discovered during the pandemic was that when hotels were operating at a very limited occupancy level, right? In some cases, less than 10% of these buildings were occupied. What that time gave us in terms of visibility is to understand how much energy consumption is being used at a base level. So, what is the baseline consumption in common areas such as the lobbies, the corridors, the restaurants? So, it really gave a good understanding of the hotel. This is
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, what we found is that hotels are consuming a relatively high baseline of energy consumption, regardless of occupancy. And what I would say is that that's created awareness around how can we start optimizing those, let's say, common areas as a first starting point. Because on average, what we found is that about 50% of the energy was still being consumed throughout the hotels, despite them running at less than, say, 10% occupancy. So I'd say the pandemic definitely has advanced the understanding of where energy is the importance that it plays throughout the building and its cost structure. And then secondly, a lot of the hotel chains, of course, also prioritize sustainability as a key metric to improve their business so that it becomes a strategic benefit to their operation. And then with that, of course, also satisfies the new traveler who is expecting a more sustainable experience.
Yes, in fact, that was my next question to you. Today's travelers are way more eco-conscious, but they still want that wow experience. So, how do you ensure that, these sustainable innovations don't just save resources, but also enhance the guest experience?
Very much so. So I think that comes back to the earlier point around knowing and understanding how these systems are functioning and impacting the guest experience in and around the water usage. And then I think another area that is really important that we're often also looking at in Grundfos is the safety part, right? So in hot water systems, factors like Legionella is a big and common concern, right? So also making sure that we're developing the right solutions that can tackle that part, and then also the water temperature that's coming out of the showers, that it's at a comfortable and safe level. So I would say those parameters are very important to the overall experience, but also to adhere to safety standards that the hotel has.
What has your experience been where India is concerned, Louis? What kind of feeling you get when you visit hotels and when you talk to them about the systems that you have and that you'd like to implement?
I would say, generally speaking, the feedback is very positive. That the hotels, again, they are committed to want to drive change, to want to improve their business from an operational point of view, from a sustainability point of view, and drive value both to the owners of the building, but of course, more importantly, also to the travelers of the building. So, generally speaking, I would say the reception is positive. But what's really important and what we recognize that also from our end, we have a responsibility to also ensure that the hotels understand and know what type of solutions are available in the market, and that they know what kind of benefits those solutions will provide to their building should they be implemented. So I think a lot of the time we spend together at hotel level is just to educate them on the latest technologies that are there, and especially in those older buildings where technology, of course, has greatly advanced compared to the time that the building was designed and constructed maybe 15, 20 years ago.
How about Louis? What on speaking on a little more technical side, when it comes to installing all these systems, smart pumps or recycling units, what challenges do you face in terms of regional climates? Especially in diverse places like India and South Asia.
By climate, what would you mean?
By climate, I mean is like India has got this tropical climate. Okay, so it's like, does the climate really affect? Okay, let me put it this way: does the climate of a place, geography of a place, affect the systems that you have for that region?
Yeah, I think so. Our pumping equipment, of course, integrates into part of a larger system. And the way how we design and specify our equipment, of course, is very much linked to the overall application. So, if we're talking about India specifically, of course, it's very much the cooling domain. So we would be developing and spending a lot of time designing those solutions that are going in that type of application. So the climate, of course, plays a big role in terms of deciding where we focus and what type of solutions we need to design.
Okay, which brings me to the next topic. How important is certification, in hotels' energy efficiency journey, or specifically Accors, obviously, because there is still a bit of cloud, when it comes to green certifications like LEED or other local certifications. Which ones at Accor have been most impactful, Reema, or which are the ones that you go by?
See, in today's day, when you have actually a sustainability and being more efficient at the core of your design and building of the hotel and execution of the hotel and operation of the hotel, when you have that in the core, getting these certificates is actually not a problem. Whether you talk about LEED certificate, which is, there are various categories to that, whether like silver, gold, and platinum. But if you're designing through the lenses of being sustainable, right, and we have our own standards in place, there are
Hmm.
brand standards, there are sustainability standards, there are design metrics, how you can be more energy efficient, how the system should operate, commissioned, all of that. So when you have those things in place, it's very easy to get the certificate. Like you can easily, if you have like incorporation of the standard and if you comply with that, you can easily, any hotel can get gold and platinum. So that's not a problem. But yeah, I mean, there are certification in which in India you have to, like, whether you want to be LEED certified, which is like more generic, I would say. which is easy to achieve because it's talk about being sustainable site, being sustainable in terms of your water, in terms of your automation, in terms of your energy, material, location, and all of it. So LEED certification is like basically you submit the papers and documentation to get that certificate. Once you
Hmm.
have the right filter in place and you comply with the core brand standard, sustainability standard, it's very easy
Hmm.
to achieve that. The another certificate which is there is like IGBC. That
Yes.
particular certificate is a bit more detailed, I would say, and it's more relevant because lead is still easy because there is just a standard criteria for that, right? And
Right.
which is still easy. IGBC is basically it includes regional specific consideration, making it actually more adaptive to Indian climate and
Right.
making it more adaptive to Indian resources also, and like tweaking your entire thing based on the resources which are available, and then going for the certification. So that basically needs a thorough practice in place, needs consultant, and so that they can navigate through with the brand and drive the certification right. And it's good to have the certificate. Even if you don't have the certificate, you don't apply for it, but even if you
Hmm.
comply with the core sustainable standards, I think you would be good to go. And I think it's just everybody now should be conscious about these things, whether certificates are there or not there. But if you have certificate, that gives you a little more leverage in terms of some sort of a with the government thing. So that gives you basically a little more benefit when you.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. What about you, Louis? How important are these certificates for Grundfos, when you are looking for a collaboration with a specific hotel or a hotel brand? Is there something that you look out for as well? These certificates, the LEED certificates or the green certificates that the hotel has with
Yes,
your partnerships? Yeah.
yes, very much so. And I think speaking into Rima's very valid point earlier on, also with regards to the BMS integration. So I think what we've also worked on is making sure that our products easily integrate into the major BMS players, right? So that we're getting the right data points, we're getting right visibility, and that we continuously optimize the system based on how the building is performing and behaving at that moment in time. So I think that's really important. Also on the technological advancement, now making sure that the pumps are fitted with variable speed drives so that we can really again optimize the speed of the system depending on the requirements that are in place. Lastly, if with regards to the certifications, that's a really important field. And in fact, in Grundfos, we've worked tremendously hard making sure that that a large range of our products in the portfolio actually have what we call EPDs, which is environmental product declarations. So that means that these products have actually been tested and vetted, and that they are of the highest sustainable standard. So that's not only for our products, but also what goes within those products, so the subcomponents there within. So I would say those EPDs are becoming more requested by building owners and building operators, and that, of course, is a field that we're spending a lot of time making sure that we are meeting those standards.
If you can talk about some key innovations, Lois, that you foresee in energy efficient solutions, that can help hotels future proof their operations against the rising environmental concerns. Is there anything that you can speak about that?
I would say where we see the biggest opportunity to save energy right now, of course, is in the way how these products are being operated. So I think the control methodology remains very important. Variable speed drives is one area, but then also high precision sensors is another area. So I really believe a lot in making sure that when these solutions are implemented at the hotel level, how can they be most easily operated and automated? So also integrating a level of AI so that the system is continuously learning what is the optimal set points at a given time, depending on temperature, depending on occupancy level. And I think though once we have those factors integrated into the system, then at all times the system will be performing as efficiently as possible, as opposed to how things have been traditionally, where maybe the hotel operator needs to manually adjust the settings of the system depending on the season and the occupancy level. So I think really a level of automation in the system is really key to the success and to achieve the sustainability goals that the chains have set out for themselves.
What about you, Reema? Do you feel, in your view, how can the hospitality sector collaborate more effectively with other industries to advance, their energy efficiency in the way that benefits all sectors? Like I'm talking about cross-industry collaboration.
I mean, if you see in terms of like, economy also, there is a huge role of hospitality. Hospitality cannot be neglected. And it's vice versa, even for hospitality also. Having more collaborative approach with other segments and other industry is important for the growth of the country, for the growth of that region, and for the economy. So these are like important factors, and how we can be more collaborative, of course, depends upon the various factors, depends upon the building bylaws also, which got revised a few years ago. And, now things have evolved more. So, compiling with the local bylaws and, local regulations, and then relying on the local resources, and collaborating with various industries which are there, right? And fostering them as well, and leveraging through them, and then fostering them. So definitely, positioning of hotel as like one of the leader, to collaborate with the various industries is something really important, and it's basically a key. And that depends actually more on the hotel to hotel, like individual, because there is actually no standard rule for that. Like, based on the location, you see that how well you can collaborate, and how you can actually, that collaboration can, the guest can also be benefited out of it. It's not just the hotel, it's not just the third party, but also eventually basically the end user is also benefited through that collaboration. And how effectively you can collaborate, like I said, in terms of your F&B offerings, how you can collaborate with the local sources, with the local thing, for basically being energy efficient, how you can collaborate with other industries also, that what they are implementing, like metro, right? And in our
Right.
hotels, I'll give you an example that, every hotel will have some or other leakage and seepage issues, which are detrimental for the project, detrimental for operations, and makes it, less in terms of sustainability, because the piping and the insulin and whatever is being done is just getting damaged, and then you have to redo it. So metro has some like nice techniques in place. Of course, they have learned over a period of time, and there are some Japanese techniques which they have adapted to make it, to make the building actually leakage and seepage proof. So learning from them also, like, taking the learning and then adapting that to into hospitality projects. Sometimes things do not look very good, like they are not very impressive in terms of our hospitality, but the technology is the same, and if we can adapt the technology and tweak it to hospitality, that's actually a good collaboration, learning from each other. Like similarly, like, we in a hotel, I'll give you example. When the hotel is operational, after 2 3 years we struggle for the roof. If you don't seal the roof after couple of years, like 2 years, you have to keep doing it, because Indian climate condition is intense. There are extreme, heat, there is extreme cold weather, and then the building also breathes, and then takes into that climate impact in it. And then learning from metro projects and the way they treat their the pillars of metro. Through that, there is basically a material which is like a paint, but it has high elasticity. So in metro projects they apply that. Why? Because that makes it, it's actually a paint, but it's not a paint. But they make the pillars and their surface, high in elasticity, which means that nothing can really seep in. The environment condition will not affect the building that much, the pillars, because they don't have time to maintain and manage it.
Hmm.
The traffic area is so high that they get a very lean time to manage their facilities. So taking learning from them in some of our hotels, now we have started implementing those techniques and those Japanese paint for our roof. And we are still testing it. If it is like the test results are good, although in metro they have shared the result, it seems very promising. And if we also find it like really reliable, so that's actually a good collaboration, and we have learned from each other, and trying to adapt those techniques in our hotel to make it more sustainable, to achieve our goal, and to be more local relevant. And in terms of F&B also, like relying on the local producers, collaborating with the local vegetable vendors, collaborating with NGOs also. And what we can do for the society is also something which is actually, it's one of my favorite subject, that how we can actually collaborate with the local community and the society, and what difference we can make to our business by collaborating with them. So it's
I
actually a
think
high time to think about these things and go beyond our box and to actually do more in terms of sustainability, in terms of being more innovative, in terms of being more collaborative with our business practices.
And I think to your point, Rima, that's very similar to how we see the business as well. And on the point of collaboration, that's where we spend a lot of time actually sharing best practices, both
Yeah.
in the design standards, sharing user cases, insights into the latest technologies available, but at the same time, then also evaluating basically what is the existing building envelope. And with that, we can actually provide services such as energy simulation and also help the hotel standardize, which is going to help produce elements like maintenance that we talked about, right? So a lot of these solutions, as an example, a prefabricated solution that's going to help reduce floor space, that's going to reduce building materials, which again has a very strong circularity but also sustainability component to it. So I would say really we have a very much a shared common goal where both parties are committed to reduce energy and make the building overall more sustainable. So I think collaboration is also a key area where we believe we can drive a force for good.
Very interesting eye-openers here,
Absolutely.
Reema, for that wonderful thing you told us about, taking a leaf from the metros and trying to implement in the hotel, about the leakage part, the roof. That was so interesting. And Lou's absolutely right. Cross-body industry collaborations. It's very interesting. If I have to ask you both specifically, what are the biggest big barriers you see to adopting sustainable technologies in hospitality, and how can these be addressed? Like, of course, there's a lot of awareness at every level and a lot of proactiveness and a lot of implementation of technologies, all that is happening. But do you see some barriers or obstacles as well, challenges that can still be sorted out and that need to be addressed? What would they be?
Yeah, I would say talking from a Grundfos perspective, I think the awareness, creating the awareness remains very important. Again, as technology is constantly evolving and becoming more efficient, it's really important that we get the message out, right, to the owners, to the operators, the consultants, to make them aware of the latest technologies that are becoming available. And one way of doing that, of course, is through trainings, webinars, podcasts like these, but also white papers. So we actually spend a lot of time developing very strong, tangible, measured, and verified white papers that actually showcase that by investing in newer technology, the benefits greatly outweigh perhaps the slightly additional upfront investment. So oftentimes we go through this entire total cost of ownership exercise to show that over a 20-year life cycle of the equipment, investing an extra maybe 5 or 10% today is going to give you a 40 or 50% lower energy consumption over that period of time. So I think those exercises are very important to continue creating that understanding and make sure that the awareness is always there and present.
What about you, Rima? Where do you see are the big challenges?
For me, actually, the biggest challenge which I see, that everybody talks about sustainability, which is like not a new topic anymore. People talk about being
Hmm.
innovative, which is not a new topic anymore. But when it comes to execution, right? I mean, when you talk about it, the only best way, of leading it is to have that as part of your design thinking, which means whatever you think, whatever you do, whichever way you check, whichever way you act, that should be in the core of it. That should be your main filter. So the biggest challenge is that, while talking to the consultant or the owners, or, encouraging them, it's just one or two points they adapt, and rest of the points, like either they are not aware, or there is a limitation to execution, or there is basically a lack of being innovative in implementing those things. So all of these become like really challenging to execute, even if you want to execute sustainability. So I think I would really encourage and I would communicate this message across, that it is important not to just talk about one or two factors, but actually to keep design thinking at the core, and keep sustainability at the core, and then design your things together. Like whether it's effective planning, keep design thinking. That should be the core of it. That should be really a core of it. And then think about business, but think about, design, keep the design thinking on sustainability as core. And when you have the right filter, when you have the right core, of course, the kind of experience you're delivering, the kind of execution you're delivering, building, everything, of course, it will have much bigger impact in terms of sustainability. It will have much bigger impact in terms of your positioning in the market as well.
I
So,
strongly resonate with the message, Reema. And in fact, I would say that sustainability should be viewed as a strategic benefit. And one of the areas that we see a pretty immediate area to drive this, of course, is also by raising the standards and making sure that the building standards are also in line with the overall sustainability targets that hotels have set out for themselves. So moving away from how systems were maybe designed, say, 10, 15 years ago, but really bring it into today's latest technology environment, and making sure again that when we are building these hotels, that the standards also match with what technology is available today, and not what it was, let's say, 10, 15 years ago.
couldn't agree more. Every small step makes a big impact when it comes to sustainability.
Well, thank you both for joining me today, and thank you to our listeners as well. Remember, the next time you're staying at a hotel, those stylish lamps, soft sheets, and long hot showers are all part of a complex sustainable effort to keep both you and the planet comfortable. Until next time, this is Vinodini Rao signing off. Stay tuned, stay green. Goodbye.